Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Lunch for the Soul. I'm Melissa Wilson in the Fox 26 newsroom in Houston, Texas. I'm the morning, usually anchor, but for this, I'll call myself the medical reporter. So I get to do the best of both worlds, and it often lends me the chance to meet the most fascinating people, often with Lunch for the Soul. It's somebody who's been through a really tough time, and through faith and energy and positive thinking and sometimes a whole lot of hard work, they come out on the other side of their tough situation even better than they ever were, and feeling stronger, and then have a beautiful message to share with us all that we can learn from. Certainly the situation today. So let me bring in Lynne Armstrong. Hello, Lori, and welcome to Lunch for the Soul.
Hello, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so thankful you're able to join me because you have a very dramatic testimony to share. I think you're so brave to use your own personal difficult time to help us all. So I think it's so interesting of how you have come about writing a book. We're going to get to that in a little while, to help other people after something you that's really tough to go through. You have a strong message. And a lot of people tell you, you know what, you look like a college professor, not an opioid addict, but that is something very real that you went through. You have a master's in molecular biology and counseling psychology. I mean, your background is remarkable. And even though you have all that, you also have a tough testimony. Tell us where it all began for you. What happened when things took, well, let's just call it a turn in your life?
I think there were many turns in my life, but I believe that addiction came into my life at a relatively young age. At first, it was compulsive eating or other things. Um, Drugs didn't come into the picture until my 30s when I became injured and was given painkillers for pain and very slowly began to use them inappropriately.
Hmm.
This is the case with many opioid addicts. It can often begin in a situation like that.
Hmm.
But the truth is, I think that there was no one turn. I always had a spiritual void, and I was always trying to fill it in one way or
Hmm.
another.
As a okay, so was it sounds like then all of that was going on even in your professional once you became a professional, even a clinician? Or was that later after all of that?
No, I had to the depths of my trouble with drugs happened after I became a clinician, and that's one interesting part of my story
Mhm.
is that it's an example of the fact that knowledge or education or even self-awareness
Yeah.
aren't enough. I had to watch myself spiral down, fully understanding what I was doing and what I was doing to myself and what the dangers of it were, and I still couldn't stop myself.
That had to be so tough because I'm sure at the time you were counseling people perhaps with that same situation, knowing that it was the same thing that you were going to. I mean, you must have been able to relate to them so well.
Oh, very much so. I left the counseling field before things got truly bad because my mental health was declining and it became clear that I wasn't able to work anymore. And that was before the worst of my painkiller abuse. But yes, certainly I understood that I had the same problem. I had no problem admitting that I had an issue with addiction.
Mhm.
At one point, I was working in a facility with mothers and babies, and I watched these women suffer, and I watched their children suffer, and I knew I was no different from them. I knew that I had the privilege of, education. I had the privilege of a safe place to live. I had many privileges, but at the heart, we were all the same.
Let's talk about your memoir because I can't imagine you being in that situation where you decided, you know what, I'm going to put everything I've been through and I'm going to be open and honest and I'm going to share and try to help others. And the title of it is so touching to me. I mean, it tells it all. Someday I will not be ashamed. Do you feel like you're there now? You're obviously helping us.
I don't think anyone's there 100% of the time,
Hmm.
but I believe I have experienced these beautiful moments. of being beyond shame, of truly loving myself and truly
Mhm.
feeling that I'm no better or worse than anyone else, which
Mhm.
is the key.
Mhm.
Because I knew how to have rosy dreams of the future and all the wonderful things I was going to accomplish, and I knew how to put myself down and think that I was a terrible
Yeah.
failure. What I didn't know is how to just be in the middle, how to
Mhm.
just be a person,
Mhm.
just a person having a life, and, I think that's something a lot of us don't know.
Sure. Through this book, I know you're trying to help people find self-acceptance. I think in life, whether you're an addict or not, that's hard to do. I think we're all our worst enemy. I think for the most part, we're really tough on ourselves, tougher than anybody else in our lives. How did you find that self-acceptance?
I I chased it in many ways, but I only really found it after I had pretty much lost everything. After I got clean and after I began to slowly regain my health, but still had to live with chronic conditions, everything I had once used to try to feel good about myself wasn't an option anymore. I wasn't going to have a big career. I wasn't going to, I wasn't going to do a lot of the things that I had always wanted to. And I had to figure out who I was without all of that. And I had to sort of build a sense of self. And in building that, I found self-acceptance because for the first time, I had to build a sense of myself that wasn't based on merit. It wasn't based on being good enough. It just
Mhm.
was. It was just me and sort of the ashes of what I had always wanted and
Mhm.
God, and
Mhm.
just had to put something together.
What would you say right now for someone who's struggling with self-acceptance? They don't think that they'll ever accept themselves. They're down. What's your best advice to somebody going through that since you have overcome so much?
Well, the one biggest practical piece of advice I would give is to do something creative, to allow yourself to do things that maybe you always thought were silly or that you'd never be good at, whether it be writing or painting or building something. Uh, I believe that's the biggest way to build a sense of ourself, a truly accepting sense of ourself. This is mine. I made it. I didn't make it to make money. I didn't make it in hopes of pleasing this person or that person. I just made it because it's part of me and I wanted to make it. That's those concrete acts are really powerful and
Mhm.
they are what are the cornerstone
Mhm.
of my new feelings about myself.
Mhm. I love that you're also there for loved ones of an addict because the family goes through so much. This isn't something that somebody goes through alone, whether they push their friends and loved ones away or whether they're trying to, I guess count on their love to help them. It's tough on everybody involved in this situation. What is your advice for those going through the other side of this?
I I feel very strongly that it's important to give credit and compassion to both sides of all of this because it's all too easy for an addict to say, okay, look at my suffering, look at how hard I've worked, and hesitate to really feel what's happened to the other side. So, to loved ones, I would stress that taking care of yourself is what needs to be done. You don't owe the addict your life. You know, it's important to find a balance of what can you do to help without destroying yourself.
Mhm.
And if the addict in your life is in recovery, that is wonderful. Um, but if they're rushing to demand too much from you, if they want everything to be back to normal, or if they want you to completely trust and forgive them, understand that that may not be what happens for you, and that you have to protect yourself, and it's not an insult to them
Mhm.
if you don't trust them yet. It's perfectly
Mhm.
normal.
Sure.
And above all, resist emotional manipulation.
Mhm.
Don't don't fall into this idea of, "Oh, I have to be kind to them or they might relapse." If you're getting any sort of pressure like that from them, that is not something you should give into,
Mhm. And
because if an addict is truly devoted to their recovery, they're not going to be dependent on your behavior. You
mhm.
They're not
And
going to be saying.
from what I've seen with as a medical reporter anyway, is that it seems to me of everybody I've ever interviewed, they may have tried to clean up their lives and get off substances. One time it didn't work, two times it didn't work. I mean, it often takes multiple times to finally find the right treatment plan. Was that the case for you? Because it seems like everybody I interview are on three or four interventions and finally they found that aha moment and 10 years later they're flourishing. But it took a while to get there.
Yes. Yes, for me, it did take several times. I think only 2 times in actual, uh, official treatment, but
Mhm,
many tries in between.
mhm,
I would say that's a very important message, not to give up, because it is very true that someone can come into treatment and they feel broken, they don't feel it's going to work, they're not even sure why they're there, except maybe it's just as a last feeble, they just kind of feel they owe themselves a last feeble try. And it works that time. That's what happened to me when I went to treatment the last time. I didn't think it was going to work. So I always try to tell people that hope is not required at this stage. All that's required is to show up. Yeah.
I picture us all as little kids and, we grow up, we have these dreams of what we want with our life and our plan. And I think it's so interesting now on the other side of it. And you say, you know what? An eating disorder, chronic pain, hospitalization for mental illness, addiction to painkillers, not on the top of my list of the dreams of my life, but that's what happened to me. That is so brutal and honest for you to be able to say that and to talk about those. How did you get to a point where you not only worked through these horrific things in your life that were just almost physically killing you, but to be able to say and be open and honest and say, this happened to me and I want to help it not happen to you? That's a big thing to do.
Well, I think what I found to be the most important is it gives me a sense of meaning to share with others.
Hmm.
Uh, People who live with disabilities of any kind, we need to feel that we're doing something worthwhile. We need to feel that we have something to give, especially if we have the kind of conditions that are seen as making us defective in one way or another. And when I look at it, it turns out that the main thing I have to give is my honesty, uh, presenting myself as I am. And if someone gets something out of it, then that's a wonderful gift. But I do what I can on my end. Yeah.
Let's talk about what didn't work in your life to try to help you. So we're talking about you talk about how beauty, sex, academic achievement, professional merit, motherhood, those were not the ways to help yourself through this. Can you walk us through those stages of how maybe you tried to get those to help you and it just didn't work?
Well, many of these are long before um, the addiction got really bad, but they were the ways I tried to fill the void that was always there. I tried to get to a place where I wouldn't feel ashamed of myself anymore. This vague shame that so many of us feel, feeling that we're not okay. Um, you know, in my teens and early adulthood, I tried to be beautiful and sexy, or win the kind of relationship that made me feel worthwhile. Later, when I married and had a child, I thought that maybe if I could be a perfect mother, or at least a very, very good mother, I would feel good about myself in that way, feel that I was giving something worthwhile. Um, when I worked in the biology field, I had rosy dreams of making wonderful strides in science and um, they were all nice dreams in their own way, but it doesn't actually work to hang our self-esteem on that kind of thing, because we think we're in this race, and the race is an illusion, and we think we're chasing a prize, and the prize is an illusion.
Tell us what ended up working for you then. How did you overcome all of this?
Um, well, I had to kind of hit a place of very much a place of humility, and I had to stop chasing a prize and be in a place where I was just grateful to be living one more day. I needed that simplicity.
Mhm.
I needed I needed to be in a place where I was grateful to just be going to a support group meeting and making the coffee.
Mhm.
A place where I was grateful just for one more walk with my daughter. Um, and I wasn't trying to win anything anymore.
Mhm.
I was just being me. And days like that went by, and as I grew a little stronger and healthier, um, I began to get creative. Like I said earlier, doing creative things, I believe, was the real key once I began to do them. Because for the first time in my life, I was offering things that were authentic, and that weren't trying to be something I wasn't. I was just offering what I had. Um, and to me, that's the real definition of humility. And uh, humility is not like lowering ourselves or trying to
Yeah.
hide anything. Humility
Mhm.
for me is giving ourselves exactly as we are.
Mhm.
And that means not hiding any talents we might have.
It sounds to me like you were able to do this very organically and not spending $100,000 like some people do to go out of state to a treatment plan, right? Is that you were pretty much able to do it on your own? Do you feel like
Well,
your
I did
skill
go.
set oh,
Yeah.
you do some
Oh,
treatment
yeah,
plan?
my final time in treatment, I did go to a residential place, nowhere fancy, but
Mhm.
I was in treatment,
Mhm.
and, but it was very different from previous times I had tried because
Mhm.
my attitude toward it was different.
Sure.
I feel that treatment facilities definitely have a useful role to play, and that I don't think the fancy ones are any different from the non-fancy ones. The
Mhm.
point is that we're devoting time to the problem, um, but it's our attitude that makes the difference, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think so too. Let's talk about your spirituality because it sounds like you really struggled for a while to figure out where it fit into your life. I know you questioned if God could love you for, the hard times you were going through. How did you deal with those struggles? Because those are some tough thoughts.
I think the biggest, uh, misconception I had about God had to do with that God wanted me to be good, and that in order to be close to God, I had to earn it
Hmm.
by being good.
Hmm.
So, for example, if I were struggling with food, I would feel that I could only be close to God when I was, not eating. And that if I slipped and ate things that were not right for me, now I wasn't close to God anymore. And I needed to clean up my act so that I could be close to God again. Um, that was uh, a misunderstanding that took
Hmm.
years to clear up. I needed to understand that uh, God wants me exactly as I am.
Hmm.
You know, God doesn't want a polished, censored, cleaned up version of me. God wants me, the true me.
And what a blessing that you were able to figure that out. And not only that, but as you say, you went from a therapist in training to being a therapist with troubled patient, and you came so far. Let's also talk about something else, another compilation, putting some poetry to paper, your pen to paper to bring this about. Tell me about Poppy Town.
Oh, Poppytown is very much a labor of love for me.
Yeah.
Um, this is
Uh-huh.
the book itself, and
Beautiful book. I love that cover.
uh, Poppytown is about giving love to, like we talked a little earlier about the
Mhm.
loved ones, the people who suffer in our orbit when we're suffering from addiction or other things. So Poppytown tries to give voice to all the people in the thing, not only so there are addicts' voices, but also loved ones, children,
Mhm.
um, therapists, doctors, just all the people who are affected, which when you get down to it is pretty much everyone
Yeah.
because everybody knows someone
It's
or
so true.
was.
Well, I hope that people will check out your books. I feel like it could help a lot of people, whether they're going through it right now, they've already been through it, or maybe they're a family member. At the end of the day, what is your best advice for somebody right now going through addiction as we wrap up? It's just your final words of advice for them to be able to believe in themselves and know that by the grace of God, they can get through it and get out of the other side like you did.
If you are truly in the depths right now, um, don't be afraid to seek help and don't be afraid to kind of turn off your brain, do as you're told for the time being. Because what you need most is to get physically clear and just don't feel like you have to fix it right now. Let someone help you. Let someone help you. When your mind starts to get clearer, then you can start to think about what you want your life to be and where you want it to go. And the answers may be very different from what you thought they were. But right now, just open yourself and accept help.
Beautifully stated. And then what are you doing today? Are you practicing now or are you just writing books or what are you doing?
I'm just writing.
Nice.
I have a great many caregiver duties in my family right now.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
between that and managing my own symptoms, there's not a lot of
Mhm.
time and energy left. And again, I have to use humility and
Yeah.
accept that uh, me doing what I can do, spending the time I can spend, and every word I write is an act of self acceptance. And I
Mhm.
believe that when we do something creative, that is what we do.
Yeah.
We accept and love ourselves.
Well, Lynne Armstrong, truly an honor to meet you, to be able to feature you here on Lunch for the Soul. Thank you for taking time for us and with us. Is there a certain place you want to send people to find your books or to find out more about you and your story?
Well, my books are available on Amazon, and I have a website, laurie-lynnearmstrong.com. And yeah, there's
All right.
just,
Easy to
I,
find you then.
yeah,
All
thank
right.
you
Thank
so
you so much
much.
again. Such an honor. Take care of you. So happy you've come so far. And everybody, I just want to remind you if you joined us late, you can always find us on YouTube. Just look up Fox 26. You can go to Fox 26's website, which is fox26houston.com. And you can find us pretty much anywhere on social media. So I highly encourage you to do that, including our Fox local app for your streaming TVs. You name it, we've got you covered with Lunch for the Soul. I hope you'll join me next time. It's always on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 11:30 in the morning. And if you have an idea, I hope you'll reach out to me. I'd love to feature you as well. Hope you have a blessed day. Thanks for blessing us by being here.